I don't think there's any better team building exercise than uh, being in a crappy situation and figuring it out with your team and getting through it.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier.
Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Today's guest is someone I'm really excited to talk with because he's built his career from the ground up, going from hands-on HVAC and maintenance roles to leading facilities operations in the life sciences industry. He's an experienced professional in GMP and FDA-regulated environments with a strong background in validation, equipment reliability, and maintenance. And he's someone who has worked his way through nearly every level of facilities and maintenance operations, giving him a unique perspective on both the technical work and the leadership behind it. He currently serves as GxP Facilities Manager at CRISPR Therapeutics. Sean Dearnley, welcome to the show, man.
That is quite the introduction. Thanks for having me, Jay. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thanks, man. It's your story. It's your journey. So yes, it was a good intro because it's everything you've done.
And what a wild ride it's been.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for investing your time. Always appreciate, like, you didn't have to do this. You chose to do it, and I've really, giving back to the community, and really can't wait to get into it with you.
Awesome. Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So that being said, with all the accolades and accomplishments and things you've achieved throughout your career and these previous years, what's been your biggest lesson learned?
So over the years, I'd say my biggest lesson learned is, I have the habit, I back into every parking spot I park in, regardless of where I'm parking. It's a small act of discipline that, it sets up the environment in advance so that if I had to respond to like a critical situation, so to speak, my exit or, my exit is already straightforward.
I've never heard that on the show. I love that answer.
Thank you. Thank you.
I never actually thought about it as an intentional discipline. I always do it too. I always back in unless for some reason I can't do so. Now I'm going to see it in a whole new light.
It's gotten to the point I don't even think I could pull into a spot anymore.
You're not able to do so.
Right. But it really is. It's just one of those small habits that, you get in the routine of doing, and it's just that small act of discipline that just compounds, and you can apply it to so many different assets and facets of life that it just becomes natural after a while.
I like where you're going with this. And like you mentioned small habits 2 or 3 times already, and we're only like a minute into the show, which is great. And I'll give a plug for a book I read, BJ Fogg's the author, Tiny Habits. And it's kind of that premise. Like when your feet hit the floor, when you get out of bed in the morning, that's an indicator of what do I do now? Right.
Yep.
It's a prompt.
Exactly.
That's what it is. So anything, but say a little bit more about this because you chose to make this a discipline. You think about it every time you drive your vehicle.
It's the prep work, really. I mean, especially applying it to maintenance. It's, even before you have the equipment in the door, so to speak, when the company's bringing it in and you're meeting with engineering and the end user and you're going through the equipment manual and setting up, what do I need? What do I need to do to service this equipment to extend its life cycle? Buying parts in advance to cut down lead times. It's all those things that you do ahead of time that if you do have an issue down the line, your, production isn't down for, as it creates more uptime than downtime. And that's the end goal,
Sure.
especially in the world of manufacturing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. No, those are 2 very key words in manufacturing, right?
Yep.
One of them is
That's for sure.
positive. One, the other one, let's not hear it too often. Right? Downtime.
Yep.
Awesome, man. I want to jump right into your journey, and I think it's a great story to tell. Yeah, could you tell us where you started and like
Yeah,
how,
absolutely.
like, you were introduced to manufacturing at an early age? So
Yeah,
go
so
ahead,
I have the advantage of being introduced to manufacturing at a young age. My dad's side of the family, my grandfather and his father started a textile mill in Millbury, S&D Spinning, and nothing like a family business to get you exposed to the workforce at a young age. But just seeing that, like, and especially speaking with my dad later on, it come to find out like all of their profit was made on the third shift. So they had to run first and second shift, and then their profit was made on the third. So to shut down like a winder or something like that, the like, downtime, it it
Mm-hmm.
it cuts into profits. And in the world of manufacturing, it's trying to pump out product as much as you can, try to get it uh, to the client. And then on my mom's side, my uncle, he started like a printing factory. So you know, uh, like on soup cans and whatnot, like all those price tag labels, like with the gun, they go through and they label them all, or even like sold tags or anything. He would manufacture those for supermarkets and whatnot. So when I was 14, I got my worker's permit, and April and winter vacations, I'd work there. And I would just work in like a heat shrink. Like I'd shrink put the plastic sleeve over the tower of labels, put it through the machine, put that in a box, and that was like my little internship. And I did that for quite a few years throughout high school. And speaking of which, I went to a technical high school for HVAC, so I get to learn a trade while also being in high school. So we had the same curriculum as a regular academic high school, but we had to do it in half the time and learn a trade on top of that. So it just, kind of accelerated learning and then getting into the workforce even earlier. I completed all those things and was able to go on co-op. So my senior year of high school, I'd work for a week and then go to school and then, back and forth.
There's a lot to unpack here. I have questions, but you clearly also have entrepreneurs throughout your lineage, right?
Yep,
A
that's for
history
sure.
of people who like to start businesses. So that's very impressive. S&D spinning. Where was it again?
That was in Millbury, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then the label factory, that was in Northbridge.
Awesome.
T
Awesome.
T&L Printing was the name of it.
And you started what wage? 14?
So I started the yeah, 14 is when I got my worker's permit and was working at the printing factory. Yeah, that
That's
was really
fantastic.
cool. Yeah, that was really cool. My uncle Rick, he spent a lot of time with me, and it was probably my first introduction to like a servant leadership type of thing. One specific example is, I remember having lunch with him, and he said a certain order was coming through, and it was these really small, like meticulous labels that just took a lot of time to get the shrink wrap on, and it was just so many small boxes. And I remember I kind of just let out like "Oh, not again," and that's when he pulled me aside and just gave me the advice of, look, not all jobs are fun, but don't have that sort of reaction to your boss sort of thing, and he kind of corrected that behavior early on. And I'm glad he did. I'm glad he didn't let it slide. And that's kind of, as I've studied more aspects of servant leadership, that really is what it's all about, is serving your employee to have them have a better outcome in the long run.
Mm. Yeah, I love that he said that too, for the reasons you just stated, because had he not, like, what could be the alternative? Like you could go years and not realize the effect, right?
Exactly, and have that negative outlook compound, and then that could affect my career in negative ways, and I wouldn't even know. So it was just one of those things that he just course corrected early on, and I've always remembered that, and I've just taken it with me throughout all these years.
It's such a great example of just people think or say, oh, they're hard conversations, and someone may avoid that. And the avoidance is so costly to potentially that leader, the company, the industry, and the individual, right? And the flip side is have it, be real, be right up front.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. Yeah.
That's great. That's great, man. Yeah, and talk about high school, like doing it in half the time and then learning a trade at the same time. That's just great. Discipline, work ethic, impressive. I did not
Exactly.
do that
Yeah.
in high school. I'm impressed.
I'm a big advocate for tech schools because of that. I had such a great experience. It really was fantastic. Especially, shop teachers were the same thing. They really had that the heart of a teacher, and that servant leadership type of mentality to, if you're doing something wrong or something you shouldn't be, that they correct it. And it really does it, you know, getting it corrected and at a young age, it really does set you up for success down the line.
Sure. Absolutely. I agree with that. Um, why HVAC?
So I was drawn to HVAC because it's like a this probably isn't the right term, but it's like a mixing pot of other trades. You get your electrical side of it. We actually had a whole like trimester of just studying electrical, and they really break it down of like they taught us to wire a light bulb, and then a couple in series, some in parallel, and then we would have classroom time as well. So they would put a schematic up on the wall, and then they would just simplify it down to, if you can wire a light bulb, you know, trace your wire coming in, and it just made reading schematics a lot easier. But then in the same vein, like the mixing pot, like I said, it's refrigeration piping. You get a little bit of plumbing experience in there, especially boilers too, hydronics and pump work, and it's a little bit of everything, and that's what I really enjoyed about it.
That's great. And clearly it's carried, you've stayed with it in some way, shape, or form through your whole career already, right?
Exactly,
Thus far.
exactly. Yeah.
Outstanding. Um, may jump back to some of this, but let me kind of move to the next question here that I wanted to ask, and that is, so Sean, what's the toughest or most challenging situation or issue you and your team have faced at any of the companies you've been with?
Good question. And the most glaring thing in my mind right now is facilities doesn't make the company any money. Especially in the world of manufacturing. I mean, we can prove cost savings and equipment life cycles, extended through maintenance and whatnot, but it's not like we're generating a product that the company can make a profit off of. So it's tough to establish like a maintenance mindset or a culture, so to speak, where people understand that you need to shut equipment down in order to maintain it so you can get the full life out of it, especially in the world of manufacturing and especially in GMP. GMP facilities to me are like living, breathing things because the equipment runs 24/7, 365. The air handler, if the air handler shut down and the clean space loses pressurization, then, alarms go off and everybody's responding. And the thing is to get it back up and running as soon as possible to get back to normal operating conditions. So it really is fostering that maintenance culture, and the advantage that we have is it was established early on at CRISPR, so people have a good understanding, and it's like a pot of boiling water. If you don't continuously heat it, eventually it'll cool. So it's just, as if we bring in new equipment, we're always in the room trying to establish the PM schedules and reading the manuals and just working with everybody to just reinforce that culture.
Can you say a little more about GMP versus, say, a non-GMP environment? You've been part of both, right? And a lot of our listeners and a lot of our guests, quite frankly, have been both, now GMP or not. I think it's an important topic. Maybe you can shed some more light on that.
Yeah, absolutely. The big difference is, in the GMP world, if it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. So
Mhm.
documentation is a really key aspect. I would actually say the ability to fix the equipment and make repairs and perform preventative maintenance is really like a third of the job. Uh, what really separates like a good technician from a great one is the ones who can communicate to the end users of, this is the problem we're having, this is what we're going to do, and this is the timeline that we foresee it'll take. And then they
Mhm.
can actually take that verbiage and put it into a work order and really tell the story of who, when, why, what, where, and how, so that if we have an audit or have to look back on it 6 months later, the full story is there and there's no room for interpretation or guesswork that has to happen.
It's really well said, man. Yeah, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Really well said. Sure.
Yeah,
Audits,
yeah.
that's what they look for.
Exactly, and it's just
Mhm.
one of the things that I've heard over the years, even from multiple different, GMP facilities. That's always been the mindset and the training that goes into it.
Sure. I think you shared, Sean, an example with me about a switchgear situation at some point in one of our previous discussions.
I
If I
did,
rem-
I did, yep, and actually that goes back to that maintenance mindset of, even things that run constantly that normally people in the facility don't see. Everybody thinks you hit a light switch and the lights come on and it's just magically works, but there's a whole infrastructure that needs to be maintained in order for that to continue working the way it should. So, one of the things we do every year is we actually build into the production schedule time to shut down the facility, shut the air handlers down, go through them, and one of the hardest tasks that we've had during a shutdown was our switchgear maintenance. It's we do it every 3 years, and at face value, it sounds impossible because we still have to keep critical assets running. But how do you do that when there's no power to the building? So what we did is, again, we put in that work up front, a lot of planning, a lot of discipline to do it, getting end users in the room, get a list of equipment that needs to stay running while we do this work. And what we did is we built in an infrastructure so it's easier to do it going forward. What we did is we brought in two spare generators for redundancy in case one generator had an issue, because they're rentals and we don't maintain them ourselves. So it's always that skepticism of, what if something goes wrong? And, we locked out our in-house generator, our UPS units. We killed power completely. We had Eversource come in, cut power, and we ran the generators. We installed a distribution panel that we ran the generator cables to, and then that distribution panel, those breakers fed individual panels throughout the facility. And then those panels had, or they have cables, stored in a junction box underneath, but then we could plug those into individual incubators, freezers, refrigerators, all sorts of, whatever we identified that we had to keep running. And that's what we did. We had our diesel vendor, we gave them a heads up of when we were doing this. So if we had to call them to fill the generators, that was already handled. And then it makes a safe environment for the electricians to do their work. Lockout tagout was a big piece of this. And that was the hardest task, for like a shutdown activity we've done. But the actual execution of it was so easy because we took so long to plan it. And then now going forward, like I said, we do it every 3 years. We're actually gearing up for it again in 2027. And now this infrastructure is already in place. So we just need to get the generators on site, get the list of equipment, make it safe, and do it.
Hey, rock stars. If you're tuning into the podcast and are feeling overwhelmed by all the maintenance demands at your facility, don't stress. We've got you covered. Our sponsor, Culbert, is your go-to partner to help you tackle all those demands and get them done right, on time, and with top-notch quality. From project planning to execution, Culbert is there to make hard work easy. Visit culbert.com today to get started. I love this for so many reasons. I just took kind of shared with you before we started the show. I took a lot of notes because I don't want to forget anything. And I wrote planning, and redundancy. That's the note I took on what you just said, right? It's like, wow. And what did it do? It set you up for success in that you said basically it was almost, I don't know if you said it was easy, but it went really well. And the other distinction, like these are rental generators. Like you said, you're not maintaining them. You don't know how well maintained they are. Probably, but we don't want to make assumptions. And the other thing I picked up, you're moving forward now with a great plan, a great framework, and confidence that the next time this comes up, you're good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've already mitigated the risk for the most part.
Sure.
And at this point, it really is just, what's changed from the last time we've done it? How do we handle that? And then we can put that plan in place and execute it when it comes time to do that this next year.
Awesome. Well done. I really appreciate sharing that. I almost missed that in there, so thank you.
No, I'm glad we got to talk about it. It's the team did a great job on it, so it's one of those things I really enjoy highlighting.
Nice. All right, so something else we touched on was making the switch from being a technician to being in a leadership management role, and how I think you said something to the effect is like, you don't need to be in a managerial position to lead. And I loved that when you said that. So yeah, please, let's talk. Those are my words. Let's hear yours around
Exactly.
that,
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's something, coming out of the technical high school and getting into the biotech trade. In my mind, especially the age I was at when I was in the entry level tech role, I foresaw myself being a technician till the end of time. I get my work orders, I do them, and I go home and then come back, do the same thing the next day. Well, as the years went on, it shout out to a whole bunch of leaders that I've worked with in the past. They really taught me how to recognize opportunity, and just getting in the room with the people discussing maintenance, deviations, revolving maintenance, and whatnot. It really did just give me the perception change of, you don't have to be in a leadership role to be a leader. Even if you take the direction from, at the time, take the direction from my supervisor, and then I could deliver that to the other technicians and say, this is the plan. We'll come together. We'll execute this. These tasks are really specific. Let's do it in this way. And then, just communicate that back to the supervisor, and it makes his world easier. He can communicate it to, up to who he needs to. And then overall, it just makes the team that much better.
Awesome. Awesome. Incredible. I like how you just said how to recognize opportunity as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely
Really
a good
good.
skill set.
So here's I like asking this question because I never really know where it's going to take us, right? So what do you love most about your job and why?
Ooh, all right. Good. Another good question. I'd say the thing I love the most about my job is probably the diversity. I mean, no 2 days in the world of facilities is the same. There's different challenges all the time. I mean, especially being a manager of people, you could have personnel challenges, you could have equipment challenges. Budget season is upon us, so we could have contract or budget challenges that we need to overcome. One thing I've learned over the years is there's always a way to get the job done. Whether it's people, some type of resource, time, money, even that there's always a way to get there. And because of that, I feel like I'm always looking forward to the next challenge for us to overcome.
I love that. I love that. Now, so it's interesting. I've heard a variation of what you said in terms of like facilities is different every day, or I don't know what to expect, or I'm all planned out, and then boom, this happens out of left field. I'm going to kind of, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but like you've got that reality or that constant, but then jump back to our previous conversation where you're talking about the planning, and you're like, I'll say you're like hedging against things occurring. So you're kind of ready. If I'm hearing you properly, you're hedging and you're getting ready for that uncertainty.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, to see what's going to happen in the future, but we try to put ourselves in the most advantageous position possible, especially just to, for the organization to succeed as well. A good example that we've had is we implemented we call it predictive maintenance. I'm air quoting, because it's predictive to a point, but we installed vibration analysis on, all of our pumps and motors on, up on the roof in the mechanical room. And that gives us like a heads up, so to speak. We've actually found, we've replaced a couple motors ahead of time before they failed, because we had the data from the vibration analysis. It's constant monitoring. So any change in harmonics or anything like that, we could see like a bearing is on its way out. So we can actually prepare the replacement ahead of time, before it shuts down. So it's just one of those things, like we have that in place, and it seems like everything's running smoothly. We're doing our daily rounds. We don't hear anything different, but then we'll get that blip on the vibration report, and it's like, oh, we need to shift gears and start planning this replacement, so we don't have any downtime beyond what it takes to replace this component to keep the system running.
Very smart. Very smart. You know what? I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Alessandro Agnello. He's the owner and founder of True Data Ops. Reason I bring that, and a previous guest on the show and speaker at our events. So there you go, Alex. I think that was 4 shout outs in 1 comment, but his company True Data Ops does what you're talking about. That's a piece of what they do. He does AI for facilities and a lot of sensors. Right.
That's awesome.
And yeah, you're really getting ahead of it. I'll introduce you guys at some point.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it definitely makes life easier, so to speak, when you can just get ahead of it.
I don't know if I asked you, you had mentioned, and maybe you covered this, forgive me if you did, how coming up as a technician has really benefited you as a manager.
Oh, yeah.
cover
Yeah,
that?
it really has. We haven't touched on it yet, but it's one of those things that, you complete so many work orders and so many different jobs and tasks, and especially from a preventive maintenance side, you can kind of start to expect, what it takes and how long and running around, so to speak, it takes to get those tasks done. And like shifting back to the planning, now that I'm in a managerial role, having that data and that experience of what it takes to get these PMs completed, it just helps, planning wise, and even me communicating it to other departments of this is what so and so will be working on and doing to on your asset. Uh, and we can kind of communicate and schedule the time to do that, so it's not rushed.
I think that's so critical and such a great point, and great to highlight it, because you can learn it from a book or you can learn it because you did it.
Exactly.
Right. And you can add really high level of value when you've experienced the successes, the failures, the kinks, the everything. Right.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it's so important. And yeah, I applaud everyone who does that. Another, he hasn't been on the show, but another manufacturing facility engineer would go down. He got a new manufacturing cell. He's in the aerospace and defense field or industry. And he worked the floor for 30 days. And his boss said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I didn't go to school for this particular skill set. I need to know what they're doing or I can't lead them."
Right.
And
Right.
I thought that was fantastic. Yeah. So, yeah, good
Yeah,
on
that's
you for
cool.
bringing the
That's
real
cool.
world.
Yeah. Yeah. And not everybody does that. Like you were saying, like perform the tasks themselves, and it's another one of those things that just compounds over time, and it helps out the team as a whole.
Absolutely. So you've got a lot of experience. You've unique experience. Not that others haven't done this path, but it's not quite as common as you might expect. So what advice would you give someone, Sean? Like maybe
Ooh.
let's look at it a couple of different ways. A
Yeah,
peer,
so
and then maybe, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so I would say like a technician, coming into the world of manufacturing, I would say the best thing that they could do, or best advice I could give, would be to listen and pay attention. And then take that data and apply it to your ways of working. Whether that's, say you get called to a repair and you need to speak with the operator. I mean, they're the ones who are in front of the equipment operating it every single day. So, even if you were to relate this to a restaurant, in the world of HVAC, if you have a freezer or a cooler that's down, you show up to a restaurant, you're going to talk to the chef and say, how does this thing normally operate? What temperatures do you normally see? And just get their feedback, because that's all good troubleshooting data, that you can use to either repair it and leave it even better than you found it.
Absolutely. Great advice. Very
Thank
good
you.
advice.
Thank you.
Very good advice.
On the other hand, for like a managerial role, I would say, best advice there, I would say show up. Showing up for the team is huge. Especially,
Mhm.
I'm gonna air quote again, but show up for the jobs that suck, so to speak. It's one of those things that, you know, like summertime, our chillers for on our roof, we need to clean those coils because of pollen, and the pollen, it restricts airflow, and then the chillers can trip out for high head pressure because the condensers are blocked and can't dissipate the heat. And then you have a chiller that trips out, and that non-critical alarm will start generating critical alarms for temperature excursions within the clean room. So it's one of those things that snowballs. But in order to fix that, you need to be up on the roof in that high heat. I don't know if you remember back in June, we had that week that was just all in the 90s. But we got guys up on the roof where it's super hot, taking panels off, cleaning the coils off. And even if you can't be there for the whole time, show up, work with the guys for a little bit. I don't think there's any better team building exercise than uh, being in a crappy situation and figuring it out with your team and getting through it. You learn a lot about each other, and it's, from the manager side, it's one of those things that you'll gain trust from your team, and you do that through action. It's, you prove it to them rather than just promising it. And it has a more impact than words do.
Yeah, you're walking your talk. That's what I mean. And I haven't heard that on the show, or really, I don't think I've ever heard it in this way, but show up for the jobs that suck. That's
Yeah,
very well said. Wait, hold on. What do you mean by that? And like, yeah, go up there when it's 97 degrees and this is a really shitty job right now, but I'm going to do it with you.
yeah,
You know,
exactly,
that's good.
exactly.
That's great. Great
Yeah.
stuff. Now we talked a lot about communication and, documentation already, but I don't think on the note of communication, you can really talk about it too much. Any more expansion on that topic that you wanted to touch on there, Sean?
The world we live in today, it's ever changing, and it's one of those things that Clarity is huge, especially with communication. So even if you have, somebody might hit you in the hallway with, "Oh, we're having this problem," or whatnot, even though in their mind they've notified facilities, they think their piece is done. It's we still need to document it, and I still need to communicate that to the team. Well, I could have three of those conversations from the time I walk from the cafeteria back to my desk, and I could forget one. Knowing me, I could forget all three. So it's one of those things that even though you have a conversation with somebody, I highly recommend that, just follow it up, and whether it's a Teams message, or, just a, hey, quick reminder, or even follow it up in an email. Even better, if you have a request, I say, follow up with a work request in our maintenance software, because that'll really drive us to fix the issue.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Follow up. Very important.
Yep.
We touched on a ton of stuff here. I think, I don't know if there's anything else you want to work through, but those are some great things you just brought up. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Of course, man. But now I'm going to flip it on you. So, right, I'm going to, like, this is all the wisdom and experience you've accumulated over the years and now been generous enough to share with us all. But when you're not on a roof in the 90-degree weather, and you're not in, a switchgear shutdown situation, what's Sean up to? What do you like to do?
Oh, all right. So, God, I feel like I have so many hobbies, but this year, earlier this year, I bought a dirt bike. I like riding with my buddies. A couple of my buddies have four-wheelers, side-by-sides, snowmobiles, dirt bikes. I like being in the woods, but don't you dare ask me to walk. But besides that, my wife and I, we big dog lovers. We have an 11-month-old puppy that she takes up a lot of our time. We bring her everywhere. We love Cape Cod, so we try to get down there as much as possible. And a little bit of traveling and whatnot, mostly driving, but yeah, hanging with the family, friends, and the wife and dog is probably the best way I can sum it up.
That sounds pretty awesome to me.
Yeah.
What kind of dirt bike did you get?
So I've ridden a couple different styles, but I went electric this time. I went the Suron route, and that thing is incredibly fun. It is instantly fast. It's torquey to get over roots and rocks and hill climbs, and it's just a ton of fun. I'll go to like Oxford, Massachusetts. I'll ride Hodges or Franklin. A couple weekends ago, my buddy and I, he's got the four-wheeler, so we went to like York County, Maine, and we were in Berwick. We did like 25 miles there, and then actually this weekend we're going up to Monson, Maine. And last time we were up there, I was riding around in a side-by-side. We did 133 miles, which was believe it or not, a little bit too much for me. So hopefully not that far, but it's a good day of riding up there. It's really fun.
That's awesome. That's so cool, man. I did, what is it? Oh, Jericho State Park
Oh
up
yeah,
in New Hampshire.
yeah, New Hampshire. Yep, my wife and I have done that.
So much fun, right? I mean, some of those trails were a little hairy, and you get the rocks and you tip in a little bit. I was in a side-by-side, like a 900 Razor.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's
what
fun.
a blast.
It's one of it really makes you focus. You're in the moment, you're finding your line on the trail. And then if you hit a rock or something, you make sure that the machine's okay. It's just it takes all of your focus, and I think that's what I like about it, is you can kind of shut out the rest of the world and just focus on that. And I always have a good time.
100%. That's so cool. So good. I love what you said. I love being in the woods, but don't you dare ask me to walk. I've never heard that before. I love that.
Yep.
Good stuff.
It's funny.
So, Sean, how would people get in touch with you? Most of the time, people are going to reach out after the show like, hey, he said this. I want to learn more about this, whether it's just a dirt bike or whether it's a shutdown. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I'd say shoot me a message on LinkedIn. If you know me well enough and you have my cell phone number, definitely reach out, give me a text or a call. But I log into LinkedIn a couple times a week, so I always check messages there, and that'd probably be the best spot.
Fantastic. Well, Sean, thank you so much again for investing your time. This was like an exhilarating, awesome conversation. I really enjoyed the time with you, and thank you for being here with us.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
Of course. And for everyone listening, thank you again for tuning in to Facility Rockstars. You can catch us on Substack. You can catch us on Spotify, Apple, just about anywhere you get your podcasts, you can find us. So thank you again for tuning in. And Yeah, another great episode. We'll catch you next time.
It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.